Hi all, welcome again to our discussion on logical fallacies. This is our last episode, and if you watched the first two episodes, we're able to discuss 5 of the 7 logical fallacies that you need to understand so that you know how to be able to engage people on their argumentation and ideas on social media or wherever you go. Alright, the first one we discussed was hasty generalization. Second was poisoning the well or ad hominem, and then we proceeded to bandwagon appeal or ad populum, and then we discussed ad misericordiam or appeal to emotions, and then fifthly, we're able to discuss appeal to authority. So for today, we're going to discuss two, and the first one among these two would be what we call the circular argument. In this logical fallacy, I will not be giving you a clear example because, well, circular argument you already knows somehow what it means. It is restating a point in a conversation or a discourse instead of proving the point already made. So I know that this is quite something obvious that we see up on social media, especially when we discuss or argue with people. Not that we debate them, but we healthily argue and debate with them. We realize that some people, instead of just proving the point they made earlier, instead of explaining it completely and then further, what they do is they go on a circular argument. They explain and explain and explain the same thing over and over again. So that's what we call circular argument. So the opposing party does not add something new or does not extend discussion of these points of circular argument. And then the person also overdwells on the ideas because, well, we believe that the person cannot anymore take it any further. So it's a clear waste of time for you both, because instead of really arguing on the main points, you just get to debate on one that has already been made earlier. So that's what we call circular argument. I hope you don't engage people and then you commit circular argument. How do we prevent from from committing circular arguments? We should know the points, we should know the ideas, we should be well read so that we could be able to explain. That's knowing the breadth, the height, the depth of a certain argument or idea. Alright, so do not commit that. And lastly would be false analogy. A lot of false analogies we can see on social media. For example, students should be allowed to look at their books or notes or even iPads during examinations. After all, surgeons have x-rays, lawyers have documents and evidences to guide them during the trial, and then carpenters have blueprints. Well, if you are quite a selfish student and you would want an open notes exam, this is something that you will be fighting for, but that's a false analogy using these professions. Why? Because the doctors, the lawyers, and the carpenters have these certain things and they're not being tested on what they know. They're doing the actual work that they have to do. For students, they're being tested or evaluated on what they have known or what they have learned from the lesson. So I hope you understand that a false analogy is always, it's something that many people would use. Why? Because they would want to appear to be like knowing all things, know-it-all people, and then they would actually even engage you further on these examples just for them to be able to prove what they have actually said from before. So we have to understand that there are things that are altogether different and that you cannot just analogize without knowing which are, do they have the similar facts, do they have the similar characteristics, do they have the similar application. Alright, so that's what we call false analogy. So we're able to discuss all these 7. I hope you've understood what circular argument and false analogy would be. Now, for us, before we end this discussion on logical fallacies, I have just some points so that we can be able to discuss this further. Logic is important in virtually all areas of study, whether it be math, science, politics, etc., wherever you go. Knowing your logical fallacies helps you avoid coming to the wrong conclusions or using the wrong solutions. Alright? So if you know logical fallacies, you would be able to prevent yourself from using these things and then coming up with wrong conclusions or even using wrong solutions like that. Secondly, we need to detach ourselves from our personal biases. And logical fallacies have always been biases, if you get to observe that, which could help us to be open-minded about a certain specific issue. Alright, so that's something that we have to understand. We detach ourselves from subjectively looking at things when we know what logical fallacies are. And then thirdly, it improves our communication skills. It improves discourse with people, healthy argumentation with them, and then we also get to filter out wrong or irrelevant information. And that's the reason why there are a lot of logical fallacies up on social media, because these things are irrelevant. These things are, if not utterly false. Alright, so we don't use logical fallacies because we would want to call out or argue with people. We can always defend our beliefs or even question people, but we do it in the meekest manner. I think that's one clear explanation for being meant for others. Being meant for others is not just knowing that they're wrong. It's also being able to correct them for the wrongdoings that they have. Well, we do it in the meekest manner. We don't just debate them for the sake of debating them, but it's always the purpose or the goal is to always improve the discourse, to always improve the narrative. And one way of improving this discourse is not to commit logical fallacies or even be able to identify which logical fallacies should not be working in a certain argument on that. So remember this, what common sense dictates is not necessarily logical. So we always have to think and know many things before we get to speak up. And that's what we're teaching you in Savor many times. So thank you so much for joining me in this 3-episode series of logical fallacies. There are a lot. There are about 40 to 50 logical fallacies, but these are the most commonly used, and I hope you don't get to apply them, especially my Facebook friends. Alright, I get to see your comments on posts and all. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy this enhanced community quarantine days. Thank you so much. Bye!